We are culturally conditioned to believe that changing our lives requires monumental bursts of action. We hold out for the perfect moment to launch a massive overhaul, convinced that extraordinary results demand exhausting, heroic effort. But this chart shows the mathematical reality of getting just 1% better every day. The math compounds. Over the course of a single year, that tiny, nearly invisible daily effort multiplies, resulting in a baseline capability that is 37 times higher by day 365. Conversely, declining by just 1% a day exerts a similarly compounding but highly destructive force. It quietly erodes your skills until your output nearly flatlines at zero. This graph charts the plateau of latent potential and reveals exactly why most people quit before seeing those results. We instinctively expect our progress to be linear, but the physical reality is this valley of disappointment, where early efforts appear to yield no return. Think of it like an ice cube sitting on a table in a 25-degree room. You heat the room degree by degree. 26, 29, 31. Nothing happens. Then, at 32 degrees, the ice finally begins to melt. The prior energy wasn't wasted. It was simply being stored for that critical breakthrough. When we fail to stick to a new routine, it is rarely a lack of willpower. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of these delayed mechanics, causing us to abandon the system before our stored potential can trigger a visible outcome. The standard way we try to fix this is by setting a rigid goal. We focus entirely on the endpoint we want to reach, rather than addressing the underlying psychology of the person who actually has to do the work. This diagram illustrates the 3 layers of behavior change. While most focus on outcomes and processes, true, lasting behavior change only occurs at the deep core, identity. Adopting the self-image of a reader is more powerful than checking a book off a list. Once your daily actions finally align with that newly adopted self-image, you stop fighting your own programming. The behavior stops feeling like forced labor and becomes your automated, natural state. This chart breaks down the neurological feedback cycle programming that natural state, the 4-step habit loop. Every human action is governed by a cue that triggers the brain, a craving for motivation, a response, which is the action, and a reward, satisfying the craving. This outlines the first law of behavior change: make it obvious. You stop relying on vague intentions. Instead, you use an implementation intention, specifying the exact time and location, or you use habit stacking to anchor a new routine to a pre-existing habit. This diagram demonstrates an even stronger strategy: redesigning your physical environment. By placing a guitar in the center of the room, or keeping a water bottle primed right on your desk, your surroundings trigger the habit for you, eliminating the need for internal motivation. This brings us to the second law: make it attractive. This graph tracks dopamine, which creates motivation by anticipating a reward. Notice the dopamine spikes long before the action occurs, right during the anticipation phase. Expecting a reward drives us forward powerfully. By pairing clear physical cues with an anticipated reward, a successful system completely bypasses your reliance on discipline. It mechanically forces the action by making the correct choices physically unmissable and neurologically irresistible. The third law dictates that you make it easy. Evolution hardwired the human brain to conserve energy, meaning our behavior will predictably gravitate toward the path of least physical and mental resistance. This garden hose diagram illustrates the concept of addition by subtraction. Instead of trying to force high motivation, which is like trying to pump more water through a sharply bent hose, you just unbend the hose. You remove the environmental friction standing in your way. This staircase model shows how to execute that low-friction approach. You scale the new behavior down into a gateway habit, a micro-action taking less than 2 minutes. Simply tying your running shoes requires 0 effort, but guarantees you initiate the process. Once the action is easy to initiate, you lock it into place with the 4th law: make it satisfying. The ultimate rule of behavior is that what is immediately rewarded is repeated, and what is delayed is often ignored. This graphic demonstrates the paperclip strategy, a way to engineer immediate satisfaction for healthy habits that normally only offer delayed, long-term payoffs. By physically moving a paperclip into a jar after every repetition, you create an immediate, satisfying visual reinforcement of your progress. This framework can also be deployed in reverse to dismantle a toxic habit by inverting the 4 laws. You remove cues to make it invisible, reframe your mindset to make it unattractive, increase friction to make it difficult, and introduce costs to make it unsatisfying. Long-term consistency is a mechanical certainty. It occurs when good behaviors are deliberately designed to be effortless to start and immediately gratifying to complete. Even the most rigorously engineered environment has its limits. Daily life intervenes, and occasional behavioral failures are a calculated, expected part of the system. This timeline array illustrates the ultimate defense against a systemic collapse, the rule of recovery. Missing one execution is an accident, but you never miss twice. If you drop the routine on day 7, executing it on day 8 becomes your most important task. Even if you only show up to do a terrible, low-effort version of the habit, you do it. Sticking to the schedule on a bad day is no longer about physical results. It is entirely about protecting the newly established identity you've built. As a habit becomes fully automated, the primary danger shifts from failure directly toward boredom. To maintain engagement, the system requires continuous, tightly calibrated difficulty adjustments. This bell curve visualizes the Goldilocks rule. Human motivation reaches its absolute peak when we work on tasks resting precisely on the edge of our current abilities. You must engineer your environment to keep you in this flow state, a psychological zone of deep focus where you are fully immersed. Ultimately, an individual's potential is never dictated by the ambition of their goals. You do not rise to the level of your targets. You fall strictly to the level of your daily systems.